It began with a seating chart that no one outside the palace was ever supposed to see. A private state council gathering, a carefully arranged room, and one chair that had remained untouched by controversy for years. But when Princess Catherine walked into that chamber and calmly took the seat many believed belonged to Queen Camilla, the atmosphere shifted instantly. What followed was not just a moment of embarrassment, it became a royal spectacle the world watched unfold in real time. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, the gathering was meant to be routine, at least according to the carefully controlled whispers emerging from royal circles. The meeting had been organized under extraordinary confidentiality, with only a small number of senior royals, trusted advisors, and key palace officials aware of the full agenda. Even among those invited, details were reportedly shared on a strict need-to-know basis. Such secrecy was unusual, and whenever unusual secrecy surrounded the monarchy, speculation inevitably followed. Yet no one expected that the biggest story of the day would not be what was discussed inside the council chamber, but rather where one person chose to sit. For weeks, insiders had quietly suggested that important conversations were taking place behind closed doors. Questions surrounding the future direction of the monarchy had reportedly become more urgent. King Charles was continuing to balance the immense responsibilities of the crown while facing ongoing personal challenges. Prince William was assuming a larger role in key royal matters, and Princess Catherine had increasingly become one of the most trusted and respected figures within the institution. While the public saw carefully managed appearances and polished statements, those closer to palace operations reportedly sensed a deeper shift unfolding beneath the surface. Against that backdrop, the State Council gathering carried unusual significance. Senior figures arrived aware that sensitive matters would be discussed, though few anticipated the symbolic storm that would emerge before the meeting truly began. Reports suggest that Queen Camilla was expected to occupy one of the chamber's most prominent positions, a placement that many observers would have viewed as entirely natural given her status. The arrangements, according to various royal commentators, had likely been reviewed and approved long before the event itself. Everything appeared settled. Everything appeared predictable. Then Catherine arrived. Witnesses later described a subtle but unmistakable change in the atmosphere as the Princess of Wales entered. There was no dramatic announcement, no public declaration, and no obvious challenge. Instead, there was something far more powerful: quiet confidence. Catherine reportedly moved through the room with the composure that has defined many of her most important royal appearances. Yet within moments, attention began to focus on a single detail: the seat she chose. The seat that immediately sparked confusion, surprise, and eventually worldwide debate. Those present allegedly exchanged glances. Advisors reportedly paused mid-conversation. Even individuals accustomed to the rigid traditions of royal protocol found themselves questioning what they were witnessing. Was this a simple administrative adjustment? Was it a deliberate message? Or was it evidence of a changing balance of influence within the monarchy itself? The answers remained elusive, but the questions spread rapidly. By the time discussions inside the council chamber were underway, speculation was already beginning to escape beyond palace walls. What made the moment so explosive was not merely the seating arrangement itself. It was what many believed it represented. Royal watchers understand that within the monarchy, symbolism often carries enormous weight. A gesture can become a statement. A placement can become a signal. A seemingly minor decision can reveal tensions, priorities, and ambitions that official announcements never acknowledge. As news of the incident began circulating among journalists, commentators, and insiders, a narrative quickly emerged that this was about far more than protocol. This was about status, influence, the future. And while the world focused on the immediate shock surrounding Catherine and Camilla, few realized that the roots of this confrontation stretched far deeper than a single meeting. Because long before that chair became the center of international attention, a much larger struggle had already been unfolding in silence, hidden behind the grandeur of palace walls and buried beneath layers of royal discretion. But that extraordinary moment inside the council chamber was only the final act of a struggle that had been quietly building behind palace walls for months. Long before that chair became the center of attention, tensions had reportedly been simmering between competing visions of the monarchy's future. What seemed like routine protocol disagreements were slowly evolving into something much larger and far more personal. The controversy surrounding the State Council meeting did not emerge from nowhere. In many ways, it was the visible result of months of quiet developments that had been unfolding beneath the surface of royal life. While official statements continued to emphasize unity, stability, and continuity, whispers from within palace circles suggested a more complicated reality. Behind the carefully maintained image of harmony, different ideas about the monarchy's future were reportedly beginning to collide. At the heart of those conversations stood Princess Catherine, whose role within the institution appeared to be expanding faster than many observers had anticipated. Over recent years, Catherine had transformed from a popular royal figure into something far more significant. She was no longer viewed simply as the future queen consort. Reports suggested she had become one of the most trusted voices within senior royal discussions, particularly during periods when the monarchy faced heightened pressure and uncertainty. As King Charles navigated ongoing challenges and Prince William assumed greater responsibilities, Catherine increasingly found herself involved in matters that once would have remained far beyond her reach. Every new responsibility carried additional influence. Every new appearance strengthened public confidence, and every successful step forward quietly altered the balance inside the institution. That growing influence did not go unnoticed. According to royal commentators and palace insiders, conversations about the future direction of the monarchy became increasingly sensitive as Catherine's US profile continued to rise. Some advisors reportedly viewed her expanding role as a natural evolution, arguing that her popularity, discipline, and public trust made her an essential pillar of the crown's future. Others allegedly worried that rapid changes in influence could create new tensions among established royal figures. What began as discussions about responsibilities gradually evolved into debates about leadership, visibility, and long-term succession planning. The situation became even more complicated because these conversations were taking place during a period of uncertainty. Public attention was increasingly focused on William and Catherine. Polls, media coverage, and public appearances consistently reinforced their popularity. Many royal watchers openly described them as the monarchy's strongest asset moving forward. While such praise strengthened their position, it also intensified scrutiny surrounding every decision made within palace walls. Suddenly, even routine administrative matters were being interpreted through the lens of future leadership. As weeks passed, reports of competing priorities among palace factions allegedly became harder to ignore. Different advisors appeared to support different visions for how influence should be distributed among senior royals. Some believed continuity required preserving existing structures and traditions. Others argued that the monarchy needed to gradually shift toward the generation that would eventually inherit its responsibilities. These were not public arguments. They were subtle disagreements, hidden within meetings, consultations, and private discussions. Yet their impact slowly accumulated, creating an atmosphere where every symbolic gesture carried greater significance than ever before. What made the situation particularly intriguing was that no single event appeared large enough to explain the growing tension. Instead, it was the accumulation of countless small moments. A responsibility reassigned here, a consultation expanded there, a new appearance, a new role, a new expectation. Piece by piece, Catherine's position strengthened, while speculation surrounding the monarchy's future intensified. Those developments remained largely invisible to the public, but inside royal circles, many reportedly recognized that something fundamental was changing. And as palace discussions became more delicate and competing visions continued to emerge behind closed doors, attention gradually began focusing on a single upcoming occasion. At first, it seemed like just another event on the royal calendar. Yet, as anticipation quietly grew, Insiders allegedly understood that this gathering could reveal more than any official statement ever would, and as Catherine's influence expanded, one particular event began to take on enormous symbolic importance. The invitation seemed ordinary at first glance, yet insiders claim it carried significance far beyond its official wording. Attendance alone was notable, but where each person would sit would reveal something even more powerful. As anticipation surrounding the State Council gathering quietly intensified, attention gradually shifted away from the agenda itself and toward the details surrounding the event. To most people outside royal circles, an invitation was simply an invitation, a formal notice, a date, a location, a list of attendees. But within the monarchy, nothing is ever quite that simple. Every arrangement carries meaning. Every protocol decision reflects hierarchy. Every placement can signal authority, trust, and influence. That was why, long before the meeting began, palace observers were already paying close attention to details that would normally go unnoticed. The gathering was viewed as highly symbolic from the moment it was announced. Reports suggested that key members of the royal household understood its importance. Immediately, sensitive matters were expected to be discussed. Senior advisors were reportedly preparing briefing materials. Behind closed doors, conversations allegedly focused not only on immediate concerns, but also on the broader future of the institution itself. As those discussions became more significant, so did the importance of every ceremonial and procedural element surrounding the event. Among those details, seating arrangements emerged as an unexpected point of fascination. While the public rarely thinks about where individuals are placed during official meetings, those familiar with royal tradition understand that such decisions are rarely accidental. Position reflects status. Status reflects influence. Influence often reveals far more than official statements ever will. According to palace sources, seating plans were reviewed repeatedly in the days leading up to the gathering. Advisors reportedly examined every detail to ensure that protocol was followed precisely. Nothing was supposed to be left to chance. Yet despite those efforts, rumors soon began circulating that something unusual was happening behind the scenes. At first, the whispers were vague. Some suggested adjustments had been made. Others claimed that discussions surrounding placements had become unexpectedly complicated. No one seemed willing to explain exactly why. That uncertainty only fueled more speculation. The closer the event drew, the louder the rumors became. Journalists, commentators, and royal watchers began sensing that there was a story hidden beneath the surface, even if nobody could yet identify it. The mystery deepened when reports emerged of last-minute consultations involving senior aides. Individuals who normally operated far from public attention allegedly found themselves participating in urgent discussions regarding final arrangements. Some insiders described an atmosphere of unusual caution. Others hinted at disagreements that had not been fully resolved. What should have been a routine administrative matter suddenly appeared far more delicate than anyone expected. Questions started multiplying. Who was making the final decisions? Why were adjustments reportedly still being discussed so close to the event? And perhaps most importantly, what exactly had changed? Those questions became impossible to ignore because no clear answers ever emerged. Instead, uncertainty continued to grow. Different palace factions allegedly offered different interpretations of what was taking place. Some viewed the situation as nothing more than standard protocol management. Others believed it reflected deeper conversations about influence and positioning within the monarchy's future structure. As speculation intensified, one issue remained at the center of every discussion: the final seating plan itself. By the time attendees prepared to gather, expectations had reached extraordinary levels. What had started as a routine state council meeting was rapidly becoming a test of perception, authority, and symbolism. Few people could have predicted how dramatically those tensions would soon erupt into public view. Yet all the ingredients were already in place. The uncertainty, the speculation, the unanswered questions, the growing sense that something important was about to happen. All that remained was a single moment capable of exposing everything that had been hidden beneath months of quiet palace intrigue. Then came the moment that transformed whispers into headlines. As cameras followed arrivals and anticipation grew, Catherine entered with a composure that stunned observers. Seconds later, she moved toward a seat many had expected someone else to occupy, and the room reportedly froze. For weeks, speculation had been building around the state council gathering. Questions had circulated. Rumors had multiplied. Palace insiders had whispered about unusual consultations, unexplained adjustments, and growing sensitivities surrounding protocol. Yet even among those expecting some form of surprise, few could have anticipated the moment that would soon dominate headlines across the world. What unfolded was not a dramatic confrontation. It was something far more powerful, a quiet action that instantly changed the atmosphere and transformed months of private speculation into a public storm. As attendees gathered, the mood was reportedly measured but tense. Senior advisors, royal officials, and key figures within the institution understood the importance of the meeting. Sensitive matters were expected to be discussed, and every detail had been carefully arranged. Yet beneath the formal structure, there was a growing awareness that larger forces were quietly at work. The monarchy was navigating a period of transition. Influence was evolving. Expectations were changing. And whether anyone openly acknowledged it or not, the future seemed closer than ever before. Then Catherine arrived. According to those familiar with the event, the Princess of Wales appeared remarkably calm. There was no sign of uncertainty, no hesitation, no indication that anything unusual was about to occur. In many ways, that confidence made what happened next even more extraordinary. Because while others focused on formal greetings and routine preparations, Catherine reportedly moved forward with complete assurance, as though the decision before her had already been settled long ago. The reaction was immediate. Witnesses allegedly described a wave of surprise spreading throughout the room. Conversations reportedly paused. Attention shifted. Advisors exchanged glances. Individuals accustomed to decades of royal protocol suddenly found themselves questioning whether they had interpreted the situation correctly. For a brief moment, uncertainty seemed to take hold of the gathering itself. Everyone understood that something significant had just happened, even if nobody was yet prepared to explain exactly what it meant. Much of that attention focused on Queen Camilla. Reports suggest that the Queen appeared caught off guard by the development, whether because of prior expectations, established assumptions, or simple surprise. Observers immediately began analyzing her reaction. Within hours, royal commentators were dissecting every possible interpretation. Had there been a change in protocol? Had new arrangements been authorized? Was this merely an administrative adjustment, or was it something far more consequential? The absence of clear answers only intensified the fascination. Soon, protocol experts entered the debate. Discussions erupted across royal circles as specialists examined the significance of seating positions, precedence, and ceremonial hierarchy. Every detail became a subject of scrutiny. Long-standing traditions were revisited. Historical comparisons surfaced. Analysts searched for clues that might explain why such a symbolic moment had unfolded in such a public manner. Yet despite countless theories, certainty remained elusive. What made the situation even more explosive was the speed with which the story spread. Media outlets quickly shifted their focus away from the council's actual agenda and toward the seating decision itself. Whatever discussions were taking place behind closed doors suddenly became secondary. The symbolism had overwhelmed the substance. Across newspapers, broadcasts, and online platforms, one question dominated the conversation. Why had Catherine taken that seat? And perhaps that was the most remarkable aspect of all. A single decision had managed to eclipse an event that was already considered highly important. The council meeting itself became almost irrelevant compared to the mystery surrounding those few unexpected moments. Public fascination grew. Speculation intensified. Palace silence only fueled further curiosity. The deeper observers looked, the more they felt there was a larger story waiting to be uncovered beneath the surface. Yet the most fascinating question remained unanswered. Why had this happened at all? In royal circles, symbolism often speaks louder than speeches. A seat is rarely just a seat. It can represent influence, trust, authority, and a glimpse into what the future may hold. The mystery surrounding Catherine's decision only deepened after the initial shock began to settle. The headlines had already spread across the world. Commentators were debating possibilities. Royal observers were dissecting protocol. Yet the more attention the moment received, the clearer it became that the true significance was not the chair itself, but what people believed it represented. Because within the monarchy, symbolism has always carried extraordinary weight. Long before public statements, official announcements, and carefully crafted speeches, messages were often communicated through gestures, traditions, and positions that seemed insignificant to outsiders, but spoke volumes to those who understood the institution's language. That is why the debate quickly expanded far beyond the State Council meeting. The conversation was no longer about where Catherine sat. It was about why she sat there. Every interpretation revealed a different possibility. Some believed it reflected a simple administrative decision that had been exaggerated by public fascination. Others argued that the seating arrangement represented something much larger, a subtle acknowledgement of Catherine's increasingly important role within the future of the monarchy. The absence of any immediate explanation allowed countless theories to flourish, each more compelling than the last. At the center of nearly every discussion stood Catherine herself. Over recent years, her position within royal life had evolved dramatically. She had faced enormous scrutiny, intense expectations, and constant public attention. Yet she continued to emerge as one of the most respected figures associated with the crown. That reputation had not appeared overnight. It was built through years of discipline, consistency, and an ability to navigate challenges without becoming consumed by them. For supporters, the State Council moment appeared to symbolize recognition of that journey. They viewed it as a reflection of trust earned through service rather than privilege granted through title alone. Yet not everyone shared that interpretation. Critics questioned what the moment might mean for relationships within the palace. Some worried that public perceptions of shifting influence could create unnecessary tensions among senior royals. Others wondered whether symbolism of this magnitude risked fueling speculation about internal divisions at a time when stability remained critically important. The monarchy has always depended upon unity as much as tradition. Even the appearance of imbalance can generate endless debate. As a result, every new interpretation seemed to create fresh questions rather than definitive answers. That uncertainty only intensified public fascination. Across international media, discussions expanded beyond protocol and into broader questions about the monarchy's future. News outlets analyzed historical precedents. Royal experts debated hierarchy and succession. Commentators explored the growing prominence of William and Catherine within public life. What began as a single unexpected moment gradually transformed into a larger conversation about leadership, influence, and the changing face of the institution itself. The contrast was striking. For Catherine's supporters, the event appeared to highlight success, trust, and growing responsibility. For skeptics, it raised concerns about perception, balance, and the delicate relationships that sustain the monarchy behind closed doors. Both sides viewed the same moment through entirely different lenses, yet neither could ignore its impact. That was what made the story so powerful. It was not simply a matter of protocol. It had become a symbol onto which millions of people projected their hopes, fears, and expectations for the future. As speculation continued to grow, one reality became impossible to escape. The world had formed its opinions, but the people at the center of the story remained largely silent. And while commentators debated symbolism from afar, another question was beginning to capture attention. What had the reaction been from those inside the palace who had witnessed the moment firsthand? Because if the public was fascinated, the emotions behind palace walls were likely far more complicated. As debate spread worldwide, attention turned toward the reactions inside the palace itself. For Queen Camilla, the incident reportedly became impossible to ignore. Every gesture, expression, and interaction was examined through the lens of a moment that had already captured international attention. In the days that followed the State Council gathering, the focus of the story began to shift. The debate was no longer centered solely on Catherine's unexpected seat or the symbolism attached to it. Instead, attention increasingly turned toward Queen Camilla and the position she now occupied within a rapidly expanding public narrative. Whether fair or not, every development seemed to circle back to the same question. What did this moment mean for her? The mystery surrounding the event had already captivated millions, but now, it was evolving into something far more personal. Media scrutiny intensified almost immediately. Every report, every commentary segment, and every royal analysis seemed determined to examine the incident from every possible angle. Theories multiplied, interpretations collided. Some commentators argued that the situation had been exaggerated beyond recognition. Others insisted that it reflected deeper shifts occurring within the monarchy itself. Yet regardless of which explanation people favored, one reality remained unavoidable. Queen Camilla had become one of the central figures in a story she never appeared to control. According to palace insiders, the atmosphere behind closed doors reportedly grew uncomfortable as discussions surrounding the event continued. The issue was not simply the public reaction, it was the uncertainty created by that reaction. The monarchy has always relied upon carefully managed perceptions, and suddenly a single moment had generated countless competing narratives. Advisors were allegedly forced to navigate a growing storm of speculation while maintaining the appearance of stability. The more the palace remained silent, the more the public seemed determined to fill that silence with its own conclusions. That growing attention placed Camilla in a particularly difficult position. Supporters argued that she was being unfairly drawn into a controversy fueled by assumptions rather than facts. They maintained that protocol arrangements are often more complex than outsiders realize, and that the significance of the seating decision may have been overstated. Yet critics saw the incident differently. To them, the event symbolized a changing hierarchy within the institution, one that reflected Catherine's rising influence and an evolving balance of public trust. Neither side appeared willing to back down, ensuring that the debate remained alive long after the meeting itself had ended. The emotional contrast was striking. On one side stood a queen who had spent years working to secure her place within the monarchy, only to find herself facing renewed scrutiny during a moment of intense public attention. On the other stood a princess whose growing popularity seemed to strengthen with every passing year. Success and vulnerability existed side by side. Recognition for one figure appeared to create discomfort for another. The deeper observers examined the situation, the more complicated it became. Public fascination only amplified those tensions. Across social media, television broadcasts, and newspaper columns, discussions continued relentlessly. People who rarely followed royal affairs suddenly found themselves captivated by the story. Some viewed it as a simple protocol controversy. Others saw it as evidence of a larger transformation unfolding within the institution. What united all these perspectives was a shared belief that the event mattered. It had become one of the most talked about royal moments of the year because it seemed to reveal something important, even if nobody could fully agree on what that was. As the controversy expanded, the conversation gradually outgrew the individuals directly involved. The story was no longer confined to Catherine or Camilla. It was becoming something larger. A debate about authority, a debate about perception, a debate about the future direction of the monarchy itself. And as that realization began to take hold, attention shifted toward an even bigger question. What did this moment reveal about the institution that stood behind them both? But the story was no longer just about Camilla. It had become a referendum on the monarchy's future. Within hours, the images had traveled across continents. What began as a private royal gathering transformed into a worldwide conversation about power, succession, and the next generation of leadership. The moment escaped the palace with astonishing speed. What had started as an unexpected development inside a highly confidential state council meeting quickly evolved into an international phenomenon. News organizations across Europe, North America, Asia, and beyond seized upon the story. Analysts dissected every detail. Headlines multiplied by the hour. The fascination was no longer confined to royal watchers or dedicated followers of the one. Millions of people who rarely paid attention to royal affairs suddenly found themselves drawn into a debate that seemed to touch on something much larger than a simple seating arrangement. International media outlets amplified the story from every possible angle. Some framed it as a protocol controversy. Others described it as a symbolic turning point. Several commentators suggested that the event offered a rare glimpse into evolving power dynamics within the institution. The lack of official clarification only fueled the momentum. Every unanswered question created another wave of speculation. Every theory generated fresh discussion. The story developed a life of its own, spreading far beyond the palace's ability to contain or influence it. Social media intensified the situation even further. Across countless platforms, discussions exploded with remarkable speed. Supporters and critics alike offered competing interpretations. Some viewed Catherine's position as evidence of growing trust and responsibility. Others questioned whether too much meaning was being attached to a single moment. Hashtags surged. Videos accumulated millions of views. Comment sections became battlegrounds where competing visions of the monarchy's future collided. What made the phenomenon so extraordinary was that everyone seemed to be discussing the same event while seeing something completely different. Royal experts soon entered the conversation, but rather than settling the debate, they expanded it. Different analysts reached dramatically different conclusions. Some insisted that the moment reflected a natural evolution within the institution, as William and Catherine assumed increasingly important roles. Others argued that royal protocol remains too complex to draw definitive conclusions from one event. The result was a flood of conflicting interpretations that kept public fascination alive. Instead of answers, audiences received possibilities. Instead of certainty, they received mystery. One trend, however, became impossible to ignore. Public support for Catherine appeared to dominate much of the coverage. For years, she had cultivated an image built on stability, dedication, and consistency. That reputation now became central to discussions surrounding the event. Many commentators suggested that the public's reaction reflected broader confidence in Catherine's future role within the monarchy. Whether accurate or not, that perception gained momentum with every passing day. Her growing popularity became one of the defining themes of the story. The contrast between Catherine's rising public profile and the uncertainty surrounding the controversy itself created a powerful narrative. On one side stood a princess whose influence seemed stronger than ever. On the other stood an institution attempting to navigate intense scrutiny while maintaining unity. The story was no longer about a single meeting. It had become a larger discussion about succession, leadership, and the direction the monarchy might take in the years ahead. As the debate expanded, questions about the future became increasingly prominent. What role would Catherine ultimately play? How would public expectations shape the monarchy's evolution? Were observers witnessing a symbolic milestone, or simply projecting larger hopes onto an isolated event? Nobody could answer with confidence, yet the very existence of those questions revealed how profoundly the moment had resonated around the world. By now, the conversation had outgrown the original controversy entirely. Global audiences were no longer merely discussing where someone sat. They were debating the future of the crown itself. And while the world argued, analyzed, and speculated from afar, another story was quietly unfolding behind palace walls, a story far removed from public headlines, but perhaps even more revealing. And as the noise grew louder outside the palace, a quieter reality was emerging within it. The true significance of that moment may not be measured by a chair, a photograph, or even a single council meeting. Its impact lies in what it revealed about the changing balance of influence at the heart of the monarchy. As the controversy slowly settled and the endless speculation began to fade, a deeper question remained. Why had this moment resonated so powerfully with people across the world? The answer had little to do with seating arrangements and everything to do with what the incident appeared to symbolize. For many observers, the State Council gathering offered a rare glimpse into a monarchy standing at the crossroads of tradition and transformation. It exposed the tensions, expectations, and uncertainties that naturally emerge whenever one generation gradually moves closer to inheriting the responsibilities of another. At the center of that conversation stood Catherine. Long admired by the public, she was now increasingly viewed as one of the institution's defining figures. Her journey had been marked by patience, discipline, and an ability to navigate immense pressure without losing public trust. Over time, those qualities elevated her far beyond the role many once expected her to play. She had become a symbol of continuity during uncertain times, and whether intentionally or not, the events surrounding the State Council meeting reinforced that perception. To supporters, the moment represented recognition. To critics, it raised difficult questions. Yet both sides agreed on one thing: Catherine's Tawara's position within the royal story had become impossible to ignore. What made the situation especially compelling was the way it highlighted changing perceptions of authority. Throughout history, monarchies have relied on clearly defined structures. Roles were understood, expectations were established. Yet institutions are never completely static. They evolve with time, shaped by circumstance, personality, and public sentiment. The reactions surrounding the council meeting revealed that many people now viewed influence differently than they once had. Formal titles remained important, but public confidence had become equally powerful. In that environment, perception itself could shape reality. The event also demonstrated how royal traditions continue adapting to new realities. The crown has survived for generations precisely because it balances continuity with change. Every era introduces new challenges. Every generation leaves its own mark. The discussions sparked by Catherine's unexpected prominence reflected that ongoing process. What some interpreted as disruption, others viewed as evolution. What appeared controversial to one observer seemed inevitable to another. Such differences revealed not weakness within the institution, but the complex reality of preparing for the future while preserving the past. That future remained a central focus throughout the debate. Public attention increasingly gravitated toward the next generation of leadership. Questions surrounding William and Catherine dominated coverage, while discussions about succession and long-term stability became more frequent. People were not simply reacting to a single event, they were responding to what they believed the event represented: hope, continuity, uncertainty, change. The emotions attached to those ideas gave the story a significance far beyond its original context. Perhaps that is why the moment may ultimately be remembered as a symbolic turning point, not because any official announcement was made, not because any dramatic declaration altered the course of history overnight, but because it captured a shift that many people had already begun to sense. A shift in perception, a shift in expectations, a shift in the way the public imagined the monarchy's future. Whether those interpretations prove correct remains to be seen, yet their influence is undeniable. In the end, the true power of the story lies in its mystery. No definitive explanation ever fully satisfied public curiosity. No single answer resolved every question. Instead, the event became part of a larger narrative about legacy, influence, and the quiet moments that sometimes reveal more than carefully planned ceremonies ever could. Long after the headlines disappear, that deeper meaning may endure, reminding future generations that even the smallest moments can carry extraordinary significance when they occur at the center of history. Because in the world of royalty, history is rarely changed by grand declarations. It is often rewritten by a single moment that everyone notices, but few fully understand. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.